Hi everyone, my name is Renee, Program Officer with EcoSchools Canada. On behalf of EcoSchools, thank you for viewing this webinar as part of the 2023 EcoSummit. I'm pleased to introduce Cathy Nesbitt from Cathy's Crawly Composters to present this webinar, Organic Magic with Worms. Cathy Nesbitt is a health and wellness advocate. Founder of Cathy's Crawly Composters, established in 2002, Cathy's Sprouters, and Cathy's Laughter Club. She is a multi-award-winning environmental innovator who uses workshops and inspirational speaking to motivate people to live a more sustainable life. Cathy is a certified laughter yoga teacher. We would also like to acknowledge that the EcoSummit has been made possible with support from Natural Resources Canada. We're glad to have you join us for this presentation, and now I will pass it over to Cathy.
All right, I don't know how I get to the center. All right, I guess I'm just going. Hello, everybody. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you to EcoSchools for having me come and do this worm workshop. Before I launch in, I really would love to just give an introduction on to how I got into this worm business, especially for young folks. This is such an exciting time. We can't have solution without problem. We can't have a basket of solutions and I can't wait for problem to come along. So it's the 21st anniversary of Cathy's Crawly Composters, started in 2002. The landfill for the Greater Toronto Area closed in 2002. And although we're a pretty large country, second in the world, we couldn't find a place to site a new landfill. And we started to export our garbage to the United States. 1,000 trucks a week were making the trip from Toronto area to Michigan. Whew. I had a solution. That's when my business was born. Half the people in Toronto, 6 million people in the Greater Toronto Area, half live in condos, townhouses, places without space for outdoor composting. And my business is pre-green bin. We didn't have an organic collection program. So 2002 started exporting our garbage. And yeah, I launched my business at that time. I didn't know that people didn't buy what they need, they buy what they want. And not everybody wanted worms in the house. It's been a long journey. And here I am 21 years in. All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what composting is so that you get a sense of that. I'm certain that you all know, but just in case anyone's watching that isn't sure, composting is nature's way to look after organic matter. No special equipment is required, usually done outside. Maybe you have a composter or just a pile. You add in your organic matter, your food waste, scraps from the yard. You mix it, add water, and after a certain amount of time, it turns into compost. Vermicomposting is the same idea, except it's done inside with worms. Who doesn't want worms in the house? Okay. So, yeah, and so any container will do. I'm going to be going fast, so stay with me. Any container will do. It's creating the right environment. And I will talk about how to set it up in a moment. There are systems, and after a certain amount of time, you're adding your food scraps, your paper, the worms turn that into castings or black gold, nutrient-rich soil, so we can grow more nutrient-rich food. Shortly after starting my business, I realized, although the waste management was huge, it was really for the black gold, the final product, the worm poo, that was really what people wanted. We have ruined our soil. We have destroyed our soil by growing monocropping, corn, soy, wheat. When you grow just acres and acres of one crop, you need to add a lot of chemicals to the plant, so the plant will grow. You're not doing anything for the soil. What we really need to do is build the soil, add the biodiversity. We've heard all these words, and it's true. We need to add the little organisms in there so that they can do the work, and they build the soil and create a wonderful immune system. And I liken it to our body. So how does this all work? Let me show you the stars of the show first. There are thousands of types of worms, only 4 that are optimum for vermicomposting. Red wigglers, European night crawlers, African night crawlers, and perionyx, which is a tropical worm. So I'm going to show you a picture of a pound of red wiggler worms. Here we go. These are my hands. It's a giant picture. Whoops, sorry for the glare. There we go. So those are my hands. This is for when I do in-person sessions. I wish I was there, by the way. Worms eat about half their weight per day in food scraps. So a pound of worms half a pound per day or 3 to 4 pounds per week. This is a large Ziploc bag, so that's about the amount of food that the worms can eat in a week. A Ziploc bag, about half full. So it's all your organic matter, all your vegetables and fruit from the kitchen. So I'm going to give you a list. All of your fruit and veg, coffee, tea, pasta, rice, beans, grains, plant clippings, cereal. Almost anything that grew can go in your worm bin. What stays out? No meat, no dairy, no sauce, no greasy stuff. And of the fruit and vegetable category, I would say no citrus and garlic and onions, kind of as a general rule, leave those out. And citrus, there is a toxic element in the orange peels or in the citrus peels. You might have heard of orange essence. We use it for cleaner. So there is an antimicrobial, antibacterial property in citrus peels. Composting is all about microbial activity. So we definitely don't want to be adding anything that might hinder the microbial growth. All right. So any container will do. It's creating the right environment. So doing it inside, you need a carbon nitrogen mix. The carbon that we use is shredded paper, could be leaves, straw, cardboard, drink trays, egg cartons, any combination of your paper products. And in this category, I would say leave out magazine paper because it's glossy, and construction paper that when it gets wet, the color bleeds out. So those are kind of the guidelines. Although I'm going to show you my one bin here. Here we go. This is just dry shredded paper. I did use a paper shredder, but you don't have to. You can just shred it by hand. That would be fine. You need, in your bedding, you need to have paper, a little bit of soil. The worms are the soil makers, but you're adding the soil, and just soil from outside, not potting soil. It's sterilized, not something that comes in a bag, because it's sterilized. They've sterilized it so the bugs are gone. So there's no bugs. We want the bugs. The bugs are the teeth for the system. So just soil from anywhere outside that you know that no chemicals have been applied. About a liter of soil, say. And then 2 liters of water, say. I mean, I'm going to talk about how you... Whoops. I fell off my chair. Whoops. Okay. But it's okay. I'm a laughter teacher. You can laugh. Okay. So you need to have soil from the outside, then 6 to 8 crushed eggshells and about 2 liters of water. You mix everything together. And once you've got it mixed up, you do a squeeze test before adding your worms. So you grab some of the bedding. This is dry, what I've got here, but you would grab it, do a squeeze test. A few drops should come out. If no water comes out, add a bit more water. If it's pouring out, it's too wet, add some more dry bedding. And then you mix it up again. The worms like it moist and fluffy. And then you add your worms right on top. And when you're feeding your worms, you pull back the bedding, add your chopped up food in the hole you've made, make sure that it's covered so you don't get fruit flies. Fruit flies are one of the main objections why people don't want to do this. They're like, I don't want to get fruit flies. So my question is, have you ever had fruit flies in your house? Yes? Okay, good. Next question, have you ever had a worm bin in your house or in your classroom or wherever you want to have a worm bin? No. Okay, good. So if you've had fruit flies and you have not had a worm bin, you know the fruit flies don't come from the worm bin. They come from the food you're adding into your worm bin. So I'll use bananas as my example. When we bring the bananas home from the grocery store, as they're getting speckled and ripened, perfect environment for the fruit fly eggs to hatch and fly around and bug us. So, and because we just peel it and then eat the banana and the peel is still intact. So what you can do, give your peels, anything you don't generally wash, bananas, melons, we're not putting orange anyway, so citrus, don't worry. Give it a quick rinse. And then if you get a container and start to let your scraps start to decompose before adding it into your worm bin. So this is called the Sure Close container. This is also made in Ontario. This is made in Ontario. The government has, now we have in some parts of Canada, we have the organic collection program. And the government has given out containers. Some of the containers have a solid lid. Now, if it has a solid lid, this is aerobic process. Composting is aerobic, meaning with oxygen. It should never smell like rotting food. So this Sure Close container, the lid stays open, so it's the Sure Close, Sure Open. And I don't know if you can see, but there's little holes in the roof, in the lid. So when it's closed, it's aerobic. It stays, the oxygen stays in there, but the holes in the top are very small. So fruit flies can't get in, even if they're in your classroom or in your school or in your home. Give your scraps a quick rinse, add them into your bin, let them start to decompose. And then once they're juicy and we're like, ew, this is gross, it's a worm buffet. Beautiful. Then you take those scraps, you can just take your container and dump it in. That would be great. Pull back the bedding and then make sure that it's covered as an additional measure against the fruit flies. So you're adding the paper, adding the food, and then after a certain amount of time, the worms will convert that material into compost, castings, worm poo. So while we're talking about it, let me just, so with any container, you need to, at a certain point, you would need to harvest or separate your worms from your compost. The easiest way, if you don't have a system, is to dump it out on a plastic sheet, put it in small round piles. The worms are photosensitive or afraid of the light. They go down into the piles, scoop off the top, scoop around the sides, maybe an hour to do a worm bin. Once you get your worms and your compost separated, set up your new bedding, add the worms back in, they're the workers, and use the castings for your plants. It's nutrient-rich soil that the castings and the plants have this symbiotic relationship. So the roots are there, they're looking for the food. The compost is like cookies and cake for the plants. So they take that up and it provides this beautiful immunity for the plant. The pathogens are always present in the soil. So I'll go back to our body. So if we have a strong immune system, I hope you do. I hope you're taking care of your beautiful body. If you have a strong immune system, if somebody's sick beside you, and you may not get sick, or you may get less sick because you have a strong immunity. Same with the soil. If your soil is really healthy and you have biodiversity, you have everything you need in there, that pathogen might be, look at that root. Oh, that looks juicy. And it can't get in there. It's like there's a force field around those roots because the compost or the soil is so healthy. So there we go. So make sure that you have healthy soil so you can grow beautiful plants. So I'm going to show you my system. I'm actually sitting on it. There we go. This is the living composter. And I guess I didn't have the tray on when I almost fell off. Okay. It's made in Ontario. It looks like a stool. So it's beautiful for folks that have small living space and they want to do this. Maybe you don't want to have a big Rubbermaid container or some other container. This is a functional piece of furniture. It's a stool that you can sit on, comes in 4 delightful colors, and made in Ontario. It's the only composter made in Canada. So beautiful. All right, so let me show you how it works. Living composter. So the lid, there we go. I really was sitting. This is the top tray. So I'm going to show you just, and I'm going to dig in here in a moment, but that's a functional composter. All the worms are in there. The paper's on top and it's the food. And I'm going to show you all the juiciness. But I'm going to jump to the second tray. Oh, let me actually go back to the top tray to show you that there's holes in the bottom. There's holes in the bottom of each tray. This is much easier in person. There's holes in the bottom. So when you add your second tray on, you put the second tray on top and the worms migrate up through those holes. So they're following the food. Some will stay, some will go. When you add the next tray on, I like to say, some of the worms are like, youpee, they go upstairs, party, whoa, new adventures, and they go to the new tray. Some of them will stay, they're like, no, we're good. You guys go ahead. That's if they could talk and see, by the way. You guys go ahead, we're gonna stay here. We know what we've got, right? This is like life. Embrace change, folks. All right, so then once the worms have, the worms will reduce the volume. So this is the bottom tray, and I've put paper on top. You can see I've mounted up the paper because the volume is reduced. It's not touching anymore, and the worms can't jump. So if it's not touching those holes, the worms can't get up there. So you can see that I've added some paper on top so that it's now touching. And I'm going to show you. Oh my gosh, this is not so easy. Here we go. This is easier in person. Look at these things that are growing. I'm not even sure what this is, but look at that. So I could take this out, this beautiful thing. Everything's growing in here because it's beautiful, nutrient-rich soil. What do plants need? They need sun, they need water, and they need good soil. So in a worm bin, they have the good soil, really good soil, the best. They have moisture, it's moist. There's no sun. So I'm always amazed when these little plants will grow and then they'll stop growing. So I think that's actually a bean sprout or something. But potatoes will grow if you put in, with your potato peels. I'm always full of worm poo, by the way. So fun. I hope I don't have any on my face. I might. Okay, it's okay. Oh, so the potato peels, when you're peeling the potatoes, the eye of the potato, that's the seed. So if you put your potato peels that have an eye in the worm bin, it will start to grow. And then you can take that out and have a potato plant. So let me go back to the top. I wanted to show you. All right, so this is the worm bin. This is the active worm bin from my kitchen. And I wanted to show you. I'm just pulling back. Oop, I don't know if you can see. Here we go. Here we go. Look at this, so beautiful. All the black is the worm poo. So oh, wow, look at those. I hope you can see them. Oh, it's so fun. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So although my face seems to be right next to the worm bin, this is an aerobic process, meaning with oxygen. So it doesn't smell like rotting food. And I love when people come to visit, to buy worms or a worm kit. If it's a couple, one's usually excited about it. They love gardening. And the other one's like got their hand on the door. They can't wait to get out. And I ask them, good. Come and see my worm bin. And I say, can you smell anything before I open it? No. And then you open it, you see kind of rotting food on top. And it's like, it's counterintuitive. It feels like it should smell, but the microbes eat the odor. That's why it's a wonderful ecosystem in your worm bin. All kinds of critters in there. And I'm going to show you shortly some of the highlights, some of the beautiful players in the worm bin. So in your compost, you just keep on adding your food, burying it, and the worms will keep on doing their work. You just add the food scraps, the paper, they're eating it all, turning it into nutrient-rich soil, and the system goes on and on. We don't need to truck it away. It's like the infinity sign. You grow the food, then you eat the food, give the scraps to the worms, they eat it, they turn it into soil, you grow more food. It's the infinity sign. We don't need the magic truck to come and haul it away. We need to use it. It's a resource. So I'm going to see if I can show you some eggs. Eggs in an egg carton. So worm eggs are about the size of a swollen sesame seed and up to 20 babies in each egg. Oops, I don't know if you can see. Here we go. Worms in. Can you see the little yellow thing on there? There we go. I hope you can. I'm going to show you video footage of a worm inside a worm egg. I just wanted to show you the size of it. So a little bit about worm anatomy. Worms are hermaphrodites, meaning male and female. It still takes two worms to reproduce. That swollen band on the worm, if you've ever seen the swollen band, that indicates that the worms are sexually mature. And once they've mated, they both create a cocoon. They both get pregnant, which is such an efficient system. It's so beautiful. Up to 20 babies in each egg, 5 or 6 is the average. It's phenomenal reproduction. People talk about rabbits and their reproduction. They have nothing on worms, but maybe they're not cute and cuddly. Okay, who knows? Depends who you ask. So the worms, they have 5 hearts each. And that's the piece that I think is so beautiful. Why do they have 5 hearts? I don't know. So we can love them more. That's what I tell people. I'm not sure why. It's to help pump all the stuff, I'm sure. But imagine 5 hearts. How beautiful. So 800 to 1,000 red wiggler worms in a pound of worms, 5 hearts each, 4,000 to 5,000 hearts in a pound of worms. It's a lot of love and a great Valentine's gift. Oh, that's true. Okay, and there we go. So I believe the worms are going to play an ever-increasing role in waste management, soil production, and therefore food security. It's essential that we learn how. I'm thrilled to be here talking about it. 21 years. I thought by now everybody would know about vermicomposting. And I'm meeting people that don't or that haven't heard of it. So I need to keep on going. And I hope that on the heels of this climate crisis that we're having, vermicomposting or managing our food waste, either by composting or worm composting, is one thing we can all do to help mitigate climate change. We all eat, so we all create food scraps. And when you compost, and then you have this beautiful soil, which inspires you then to grow your own food. Once you've grown your own food, you don't want to throw away that food because you worked hard to nourish that food. You got to plant it. You know, gardeners are the most hopeful people in the world because you got to plant a seed, then you got to water it, you got to weed, you got to wait patiently while your plant decides if it's going to grow or not. And then, you know, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months, depending what you're growing, you get your harvest, and wow. And then it tastes so good. If you've ever grown a tomato, there's nothing like growing your own tomato and eating it than having one of those cardboard winter tomatoes from the grocery store. Heck, you can't even compare. And so I think with food waste, that's one of the things that that we can do is managing our scraps. Any space can have a worm bin. This is a great option for anybody that lives in cottage country, where there may be bears or mountain lions or coyotes that are causing trouble, or urban dwellers where raccoons, rats, rodents, anything that you don't want to attract to your backyard composter. This is a wonderful way to manage it inside. In schools, it's a beautiful lesson. I once had a math teacher say, oh, I'm a math teacher. So I said, oh, well, there's 800 to 1,000 worms in a pound. They eat half their weight per day. They have 5 hearts each, up to 20 babies in each egg. I mean, it is totally about math, but it could also be about English, where you're writing stories about the worm. Imagine the children's book, The Worm That Only Had 4 Hearts. You know, it's unlimited how you can help worms become part of your lessons and part of your life. What I do with my businesses is how I live my life. Every simple solutions for today's challenges. Worms fermenting the soil. I have a sprout growing business, so I grow my own sprouts, nutrient-rich, wonderful sprouts, bean sprouts, and then laughter. I'm a laughter yoga teacher, and during this cuckoo time, I'm really being called to bring laughter because I want people to care about the planet. But if we're having a mental crisis, we can only help worry about how do we get out of this stress. And stress is related to about 90% of our ailments. It's a stressful time that we're living in. And just a little bit about stress. Stress in our brain lives in the amygdala. And it hasn't evolved since prehistoric times. So when we go into stress, when we encounter a stressful situation, like ever missed the bus? Have you ever missed the bus or lost your keys, phone, glasses? And you're like, you're flapping around. Oh no, I'm going to be late. Oh, I've lost my keys. Oh, I missed the bus. The longer we're flapping around, like we're never going to find our keys. The bus isn't coming back. We missed that bus. The next one's going to come along. So our brain requires 25% more oxygen than the rest of our body as an operating principle. So when we're stressed, we're not breathing properly. Our body's not getting what it needs. For sure, our brain isn't. So what we need to do in those stressful situations, any stressful situation, and I would suggest before your next exam, you've crammed all night, maybe you've studied hard, maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but you're stressed. So what you need to do just before you write your exam, and for teachers watching, this is a great practice. I would say laugh for 30 seconds, maybe go to the washroom if they don't let you do it in the class. Laugh for 30 seconds, full on in the washroom. And then it oxygenates your beautiful brain. So you're laughing, ha, ha, ha. You're not present, you're not thinking, you're just becoming totally present. And that raises your vibration. You feel good, you feel better. And then ideas can come in. So all of the answers can pour in when you start writing your exam, or maybe you do it on the computer. I don't know how it's done. Then the answers are going to pour in. I promise. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but try it. It works. Okay, so back to the worms. I wanted to let you know about some of the projects that I've done in 21 years. At the beginning of my business, I needed more worm food. I'm located in Bradford. We had 6 coffee shops. We're a small town. I don't think we know how to make coffee in Bradford. So the coffee shops were very busy. And without getting into the whole big story about how this all worked, I ended up going to the one named after the hockey player, and they didn't want to play, even though we had 2 of those locations in our town, and they were the busiest. They were creating the most coffee grounds. They didn't want to play. And I understand they do good community work, but they didn't want to give away their coffee grounds. They didn't want anyone. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but they told me there was an unwritten policy that their coffee grounds had to go in the garbage. Can you imagine that meeting? Okay, without getting into that. All right, so I ended up going to country style, and they did play. And in 1 month, I would go every day and collect their coffee grounds for the day in buckets. And in 1 month, I collected 1,000 pounds of coffee grounds from the slowest shop in town. So can you imagine what the others are doing? Wow. And coffee grounds, by the way, don't need to be chopped up. They don't need to be rinsed. They're not attracting fruit flies. They are nutrient-rich food that is accessible to the worms right away. So you can sprinkle that on. So that's something. And I wanted to give you ideas about, where do we get food? What if we wanted to have a worm business? I hope you do, because we need more worm growers. Grocery stores have an endless supplies. When you go to the grocery store and all the produce looks so beautiful, that's because they have somebody coming along, taking away the rusty lettuce and the bruised apples and the bananas that are gone. Some grocery stores are now selling, their kind of seconds, their vegetables and fruits to be consumed today, kind of. And that's great, kind of giving them another life, because once they leave the grocery store in the dumpster, unless there's dumpster divers, but otherwise, all that food is going to landfill, and it's a resource. And as that food rots, and it causes problems because it's off-gassing methane. Methane is the most powerful greenhouse gas that we know of, so it's creating a really big problem. And I often hear people say, well, we can just put it in landfill and it's going to decompose there. Just a little myth. I'm going to bust that myth right now. When they finish filling the landfill for the day, they run over it with tractors to compact it. When the stuff is compacted, no oxygen is getting in there. And they're actually mining landfills now. And so they'll stick a probe down the center of the landfill and pull out a tube of stuff. And they found 50-year-old newspapers that you can still read. Newsprint is one of the fastest biodegradable materials, so that it's staying intact. So that myth is busted. You can't say anymore, I'm just going to put it in the landfill because it'll break down. It doesn't, first of all, and it just causes more trouble. So why not compost at home, at school, at work, wherever you are, compost and create wonderful black gold for more nutrient-rich soil so we can grow more delicious, nutritious food. And you can grow food anywhere. Live in a condo, a small place, somewhere in a basement even. You can grow sprouts, you can grow herbs, you can grow your greens like some lettuce, some spinach. You can grow some stuff. So at least you're getting some nutrients. And growing stuff is so exciting because you see it. It's just like, again, back to the hopeful gardener. You see it growing. You can go and talk to it. And, like sunflowers. So you can grow sunflower sprouts. If you go to a fancy restaurant, sometimes they put the pea shoots on the side of your plate. So you can grow your own pea shoots and then have your own fancy garnish. How fun. And then eat them. And with pea shoots, how fun. You grow them, you pinch it off, and then a note gets sent to the pea, like, something happened to our top. We better regrow. So then another one will regrow. Nature is the coolest place. And before I end, I did say that I was going to show you some players. So let me show you. I have a digital imager, so which is just, well, you probably know more than I. We can take video footage, magnified video footage in our worm bin, which is what we've done. So I'm going to show you a highlight reel. I'm going to be narrating as it's playing. So here it is. Let's see. Back to the beginning. All right. So this is a silent film. I'll just be talking in the back. So this is just the video footage. There's my finger, there we go. And that there's obviously a worm and just making its way. It's just so cool. Look at the lines on that worm closer up. Yeah, and then we're going to see some springtails. Here we go. So beautiful. Look at, so there we go. So they're teeny, they're insects. They got the 6 legs and 3 body parts, antenna, all that. Very, very small. Springtails, they have a little furcula as a tail, and they actually spring around in the worm bin, although you can see them crawling here. Closer up, don't be afraid. 40 times magnified. Here we are, a worm egg. So the size of a sesame seed. Oh my gosh, technology is cool. See the worm moving inside the worm egg. Wow. Very cool. I know, very cool if you're a worm farmer. And here we are. This one's the butt end of a worm. And look at it, it's going to poop. Yep, here it comes. Wow. Like incredible footage. I have no idea how my husband was able to capture this footage. So cool. That one's, we called a casting call. The highlight reel of our little micro things. I wanted to show that because I think it's very cool. Whoops, stop sharing. All right, there we go. So I'm back. I hope that you've enjoyed this short little intro into organic magic with worms. It really is a fascinating place. 21 years, I'm still inspired and awed by these worms. They're so small, yet they have such a huge role to play. And there's vermicomposting in just about every country. Cuba is the leader, or they were a few years ago, a leader in vermicomposting, because in '89, Soviet pulled out of Russia, of Cuba, and they lost all of their petroleum, all of their farming ways. So they called in they pulled the organic farmers out of retirement, and they became the leaders in organic farming. Can you imagine? Oh, it's really inspiring to see the work that's going on around the world. And I'm just hopeful that North America becomes one of the leaders in this super cool space. And we need you. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I could be a worm farmer, you so could. I think that every town ought to have a worm composting business, or at least a community center that, you know, when you're eating your apple, you just know, oh, where's the worm bin? Just like we do with recycling bin now, or the green bin. We would just say, I wonder where the worm bin is, and just put our scraps right there. It'll be a much better place. We won't need to truck all this wet waste around. And I'm so inspired. Anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed my little chat. And I wanted to just do an invite to, I am a laughter yoga teacher, and I have a free laughter yoga class every Tuesday, 30 minutes, super fun self-care on Zoom. And I would love to invite classes to come and check out the magic of laughing for the health of it. Youpee! Yay! Thank you to Eco Schools for having me come and speak about my passion for worms at this summit. I'm so grateful.